every voice, it counts them all. A team of hearts with plans to share, for every soul we're standing there. It's in the ballot, it's in our hands. Together we rise and take a stand. For every dream, for every need, community spirit is our creed. The Lord is here to pave the way, working hard both night and day, delivering hope, delivering dreams. We are the ones who fuel the streams. Every corner, every street, we bring the change that makes us meet. Hand in hand we hold the flame, together we'll make a lasting name. It's in the ballot, it's in our hands. Together we rise and take a stand. For every dream, for every need, community spirit is our creed. The thought is here to pave the way, working hard both night and day, delivering hope, delivering dreams. We are the ones to fuel the streams. Every corner, every street, we bring the change that makes us meet. Hand in hand we...
And good afternoon, everybody. And tonight, this is our candidate here vying for the not one, not two, but all three ticks to become the Martinborough Ward candidate for the re-election. There's one thing stepping their way, and that's you filling out the voting paper.
Which is the opening credits. Thank you.
Coming here live from Martinborough Town Hall, we're here for the Martinborough General Ward. How is our one and only candidate, Rob?
Thanks very much for that, and thanks to the Ballot for hosting what's going to be a very important election this year for residents and ratepayers in Martinborough. And I'm very pleased to be here. I may be the only candidate, but I think I've got quite a bit to say on what our future council should look like. Thanks a lot.
Gee, so that's a pretty short, sharp, sweet opening statement. Wasn't expecting it to go quite that quick, but that's all good. Okay, so we're going to do something a bit different to normal shows. We're going to go for all 28 questions plus the 3 hard hittings. You ready, Rob?
I'm ready, just lay it on.
Okay. We've got question A. What political party are you linked to?
None. As a public servant, and over the last 20 years, I've maintained quite a political neutrality.
Okay, we've got B. Should rural communities have a say in the operations of council-owned rural water schemes?
Look, I understand there's a lot of concern in the community as to how council is operating. And in my view, council should be consulting on any particular issue that they have under discussion.
Okay. 3, what is your view on residential, commercial and industrial growth in the district?
Very simply, we need to expand the rate base to keep our rates more affordable.
Okay, let's get to D for Delta. What, come on, change. Do you think council is doing enough to maintain South Wairarapa's rural roads?
Look, people always think there's more that we can be doing, but there's only a limited amount of funding at the end of the day. And we need to prioritise, therefore, particularly on important things like maintaining our rural roads.
Okay, we've got E for echo. There has been much media coverage about candidates' behaviour towards fellow candidates all over the country. What are your personal values that make you suitable to be a councillor?
Yeah, it's a good question, that one. Look, I don't think our community would really stand for that kind of behaviour. As a council, we need to act as a team. And that's why it's important we need to have the right people around that council table who can bring experience to it and know at the end of the day, when they leave the council meeting, that we're all on the same page.
Okay, we've got F for Foxtrot. The government and the Taxpayers Union have been accusing councils of being irresponsible for large percentage rates increases. What is your view?
I think the government needs to actually look in the mirror on this one, as they are continuing to put lots of costs onto local councils, and they're not providing the funding, frankly, for that. And a good example of that is just the new water entity that's been announced. This was forced by the government on us.
Okay, we've got G for gigantic giraffe. Do you support central government introducing rate caps onto local authorities, and why?
No, and the reason for that is because we have seen how rates, when they're artificially held, can impact on communities like South Wairarapa. There were years and years of underinvestment by previous councils here, and we are left now with the results of that underinvestment.
Okay, we've got H for hotel. Do you support implementing safer speed limits around our schools within the South Wairarapa district territorial limits?
It's a very easy one. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we've got I for India. Spending needs to be within budget without increasing rates. What services or luxuries will you stop?
It's an interesting question because I'm not sure what you mean by luxuries, but we do need to focus on the basics, and that includes certainly our parks, our libraries, and our swimming pools.
Okay, we've got J for Juliet. Sorry, finally, slide change. How do you plan to use deliberative democracy to ensure residents can directly contribute to the challenges our community faces?
Yeah, that's another really good question, because the council needs to work as councils are designed, and that's certainly not happening now. We have a council here in South Wairarapa, which has only met twice since the beginning of this year, and they've been meeting as subcommittees, which is a problem because it cuts off the democratic rights of people to have their say. So I'd like to get back our council to be much more orthodox, meet as the council, meet as the committees, so people, ratepayers and residents, can have a say, and it's transparent on what is happening in council itself.
Okay, we've got K for Kilgrave. Do you think the Māori wards, such as our own Te Paru or Te Ika, are Māori ward strengthens democracy? Why not?
I think for me, I've got a couple of comments to make on that. So the first and the most obvious one is the Local Government Act requires all councils to consult with Māori. So that's the first and most obvious thing. Secondly, it's about the history of the Wairarapa itself. I mean to say, Māori have been here a very, very long time, and they are very much part of the huge heritage of this place. So it's very important for councils to consult with Māori. I think the thing about it is, though, we've got a referendum on this, and I will stand by whatever the outcome of that referendum is. But we've also already got a Māori committee for council, so I just don't see what the issue is.
Okay, we got the L for Littleton, or for Lake Ferry. Concerning the central government's messaging that council's been a core reason for the cost of living crisis due to wasteful spending. Do you think this is the case? Why or why not?
No, because, you know, as I said earlier, it's been councils in the past who have artificially tried to hold rates back, which has led to our current problem with infrastructure and investment, and we have many examples of that now. We have a water and a sewage system here in Martinborough, which has led to a complete halt in development, and that impacts on a lot of people, our tradies, our businesses here, and the ratepayers overall.
Okay, we've got Ian from Martinborough. What will you do to stop poor council expenditure, allocate resources to critical infrastructure, and rein in huge increases?
This is a question that I kind of like, because as a senior public servant, I've had to work with sort of many governments which come and go, and some will invest and some will make cuts and take money away. So, you know, I've had to work in organisations to prioritise and to live within our means. And so it's that experience that I will actually bring to council.
Okay, we've got Ian from November. Issues around climate change are becoming more problematic. What are your thoughts on supporting anaerobic digestion of food waste to produce biogas similar to the plant in Wairarapa? Please also note this is not the incineration of general waste.
Yeah, I don't really know that much about the process that has been referenced there, but I think we should be open to good ideas more generally, because that's where you can look at efficiencies and make savings as well, if that's something council should pick up on.
Okay, we've got O for Oscar. Martinborough is set to become a growth hub, but there are major challenges before this is a reality. What do you think is the most pressing challenge? Think the most pressing challenges are, and how would you address them in order of priority?
So, I mean, if I had to nail this just down to two things, I think for me, it's fixing our infrastructure, getting the basics right, keeping rates affordable. And the second thing for me is transport connections. And in that I mean road and rail. And we've got to stick to the plan. We've got to keep investing in making sure Wellington keeps notice on these particular issues, because I feel they've dropped the ball in central government and we're being left to our own devices quite a lot. So we need to basically kick the tyres in Wellington a little bit more so that they take notice of the issues that are impacting on South Wairarapa.
And we've got P for Paitoa. Council has lost many staff who have roading, engineering and planning skills and have contracted out these activities. This has led to a blowout of the cost of works. 40% roading repairs goes costs go into traffic management. What would be your solution to employing the appropriate staff in council and using local expertise and businesses rather than outsourcing the work?
Yeah, I think there are always a number of solutions that could be applied, but I think I would like to actually look at the costs and benefits first. You know, sometimes councils sort of adopt a particular solution or think, oh, this is a great thing that's about to happen, and then at the end of the day, it ends up costing them a whole lot more. So you've got to do that work. You've got to look at the options on the table and then take everything into consideration and consult as well before you head down a pathway, which at the end of the day may end up costing you much more money.
Okay, we've got Q for Quebec. South Wairarapa doesn't have many places where technical tyres are used on the footpath to assist users who are visually impaired. Is this a core function that council should provide or a nice to have?
Yeah, I might answer this a bit differently because I did go online to have a look at what tactical tiles are and where they are used. And they're certainly great, for the purposes that they're designed for. But we are a small council. Even though council has responsibility to fix the footpaths, they've got to do it in an efficient and cost-effective manner.
Well, for Romeo, South Wairarapa has some cycleways along its arterial routes throughout the district. Is this a core function that South Wairarapa District Council should provide or a nice to have?
I think there's certainly an opportunity here for the council to actually work much more closely with the community on developing cycle trails. Here in Martinborough, it's already under discussion about the opportunity to combine and work with the wine growers around the vineyards to put a cycle trail through them. And of course, that has the added advantage of taking cyclists off the roads.
Okay, we've got S for Sarah. This term, the outgoing mayor, has been under great pressure and at times been treated with diversion by councillors. How will you ensure respect, working with different views, accountability and transparency?
Look, I've chaired many governance committees and managed large teams of staff, and I've learnt, the need to build an organisational culture which is both inclusive, but also respects diversity of thought and works as a team. And so it's always been my mantra that while you can bring different views and opinions to the table and have a good old discussion, and at times a good old Barney, when you leave the room, you have a consensus, and that's the end of it. You don't go after that stabbing people in the back or disrespecting people. I think that's my philosophy in life, that consensus, once it's agreed on, you all agree, whether you might disagree or not at the end of the day.
Okay, we've got T for television. What is your approach to handling controversial and complicated issues?
It's certainly all about consulting with a broad section of the community and stakeholders. And don't let council first form a view, agree on it, and then actually go out and consult people. And the best example of that is what happened recently was out in Nawi, when we had the paper road going on from Cape Palliser. Council formed a view, locked the gates, and they said they would consult. It was totally the wrong way round, in my opinion.
Okay. Beautiful. If you are elected, will you decelerate council spending on unwanted green projects and concentrate on vital necessary infrastructure needs such as roading and water?
A definitive yes, but I'd actually kind of like to know what these grand projects might be, because I haven't seen too many floating around here.
Okay, we've got V for violin. Why do you think you're right for the role as a councillor?
Yeah, as I've already mentioned, I have spent most of my career in public servant, and most recently as the Deputy Chief Executive with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So in that time, I've had to learn on how to ask the hard questions and make hard calls, actually focus on what really matters. And the other thing about that is I've come to learn, and I know Wellington very well, and I know how it ticks and thinks, but I also know how to make Wellington work for us.
Okay, we've got W for Wairarapa. Would you consider advocating for more safe pedestrian crossings on main arterial roads such as Kitchener Street and Martinborough?
Look, I think our crossings here are reasonably well marked and lit as well, but we've actually got to keep at it and make sure they're adequately maintained. What I don't think I'd like to see happen is someone come along and suggest we put traffic lights around the square, or as has been proposed, actually pedestrianising it. That would just take away the whole character of the community.
Oh, that sounds like Wairarapa ain't going to have its first set of traffic lights yet. Okay, X for X-ray. What's one big opportunity or challenge you see in the district?
Challenges, I think I will focus on as opposed to opportunities, because there are lots of opportunities, and I think one of the things that I'd like to work on in terms of economic development in this region, because there's just so much we could sell, but again, it's about getting the basics right to attract people here. So on the challenges, for me, council has just lacked leadership. It hasn't made the hard decisions. Things that should have been prioritised over the years have simply been deferred. And, you know, that's the mess you just get in. When you don't make those decisions, you keep putting them off, they start to creep up on you. And then what we've had over the last 2 to 3 years is very big, substantial rate hikes, and it just becomes unaffordable for many, many people. And people may view Martinborough as a relatively wealthy place, but in fact it's not. I think people will be surprised. It's an older community. We've got people who receive things from food bank here. So these rate hikes which have occurred actually put people onto the borderline in many cases here. So we've just got to be better. We've got to be smarter with the way council works. We've got to be more efficient with the way council works. And that's what I intend to bring to the table.
We've got Y from Ballot when it gets there. Sorry. Okay. Do you support household food waste collection to stop organic waste from going to the landfill?
I'm going to answer this actually very simply for us. I support in our household waste collection, but I compost it, as many people do in Martinborough, and because we're great gardeners and we love our compost and we love putting it on the garden when it's required.
Okay. Z for Zulu, what's your biggest priority for next year and how do you intend on delivering that?
I'll try to be brief, but it's a range of things for me. So going forward, we will certainly need a council that will keep rates in check. I think, as I already mentioned, we need a council that will support and promote economic opportunities and to build a larger rates base, but also to generate jobs here. As I've also mentioned, certainly deliver on infrastructure and make it much more of a better process than we've got now. We do too much of this sort of patch and mend around our roads here in Martinborough. And also, as I mentioned, generate more efficiencies, work much more closely with our neighbouring councils to make sure we have some shared services there as well. And I think the other thing is about protecting amenities, particularly for our younger people, because they're the ones who are going to live here in the future. And for that, I'm very strong on our libraries and our playgrounds and our parks, and making sure I stand up and protect those as much as possible. And finally, we've got to do much more, as I've also mentioned, about advocating more strongly in Wellington. Wellington is putting so many costs onto local government, and we've just got to push back on that.
Joys of being rural, you keep the fun parts of Wellington. What specific previous experience do you have in leading complex organisations?
I think I've already mentioned my previous role, most recently as the Deputy Chief Executive of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Prior to that, I held numerous Deputy Secretary roles in the public sector. I actually worked for the Governor General for 4 years as his main advisor, and then I've also been in Parliament for 4 years. I worked for Phil Goff when he was the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So I've had quite a broad experience across government. But more so now, in my last role, I had overall responsibility for a budget of approximately $500 million. staff of over 1,200 people out there, some 63 offshore posts that the ministry had, and all the people that went with that as well. I was also responsible for negotiating some very large, supporting the negotiations of very large trade agreements on behalf of the New Zealand government, particularly with the European Union, with the UK as well. But I think the two most satisfying things that I've done most recently was I had 2 offshore postings in the Pacific, and that was making sure that our Pacific neighbours, in terms of our development budget, could aspire to the type of lifestyle that many New Zealanders do as well. And then one of the things that has given me great comfort in my career has been working on behalf of New Zealanders, particularly those New Zealanders who've got into trouble, and providing that sort of assistance to them so that they can return safely home to their family. So all of that wrapped up. I'm a rural boy by heart. I used to work in the Wairarapa dairy factory. I used to work in the here in the Horatory Freezers works there. So I've also come with that sort of broad background experience throughout my life.
Okay, we've got a question AB for Alpha Bravo. Have you got any experience in civil defence and infrastructure reliance? And if not, how would you learn about these issues as we were a councillor?
I'll say yes to that, but it always comes with a tinge of a bit of sadness as well. I've mentioned, things like your consular responsibilities that you have offshore, and for me, that's been dealing with sort of, the big impact of tsunamis across the Pacific and setting up teams to manage that. But it was both rewarding but quite challenging for me was I had responsibility on behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in leading the big team that provided the response to the Christchurch earthquake. And that was very multifaceted, from putting, teams of people on the ground to help our emergency services, all of the foreign nationals that were killed there, providing support to their governments and also their families as well. So yes, I've had significant experience in doing it. In answer to your second question, the main thing is you've got to have a plan. And you've got to have a plan which will take you forward in any emergency event, and so people know what they are doing from the get-go. But also, I come back to this as well. You've got to have experienced people around the table, and you've got to have an experienced leader in charge of the team who know what they're doing.
Okay. Laura, yeah, we've hit the hard-hitting questions graphic, please. Are you ready to do it on each split? It won't look on the screen. Left-hand screen. And it's right-hand side. Okay, so hard-hitting questions here. So hard-hitting questions here are the questions we ask all candidates here. Candidates can't use any button cards, not like we butter when we've only got one fantastic person from the fit there. You can go to FIRS, where we've also, ironically, got only one fantastic candidate here. It's a shame you can't squash 3 ticks into one column on the ballot box and make them count as 3 votes. Okay, so let's get started with it. Hard-hitting question number 1. Having released the water services debt to the new Wairarapa Town Hall water entity, would you support debt funding any future assets in South Wairarapa? If not, why not? If yes, are there specific assets you would support that would be funded by new debt paid from council rates?
Yeah, it's a really topical question. But look, I think we've got to be very careful here, because as we all know, debt just doesn't go away, full stop. And it's already very evident with the new water entity that at the end of the day, the ratepayers are going to end up paying for it. So it's as simple as that. So With other debt, you've got to be very careful as a council what you're taking on board. I have looked at the rural areas though, and I do think irrigation and expansion of irrigation might be one area I think this council will need to look at.
Okay, let's get on to hoping question number 2. Do you support the 3% rates caps petition that was presented to South Wairarapa District Council ahead of the year's rates decision?
Yeah, another very topical question. For me, look, I've talked to a lot of people when I've been out there door knocking, and people have told me that yes, they do understand what a rate cap would look like. And for them, it's actually not sustainable because we just end up with this situation, again, as we've been in, where we just defer and defer and defer. So what people actually want is just to get the basics right, you know, the roads and the pipes. And I feel confident that we can do that.
Okay, and hardening question number 3. What is your position on retaining the Wairarapa District Council's Te Karu or Te Ika Maori Holding Board for South Wairarapa and Greater Ballot Regional Council's Te Te Ika Maori Holding Constituency? Why do you hold that position?
I think I answered this earlier, but as I said, simply the Local Government Act requires councils under the treaty to consult with Māori. But I'll go a bit further than what I said earlier, because for me it's very important for several reasons here. Māori is very much part of the community in South Wairarapa, and they're a very supportive part of the community as well. And I've seen that firsthand with the wonderful marae we've got here in Martinborough, and the way they host people, and certainly if there was an emergency, they'd be the first people at the council store saying, "You're welcome to come and use our facility."
Okay, would you like to get to the closing statements of why you should receive one of the free tips? Since you can't get 3 of them squashed into one box.
Look, I have had, as I said, quite a lengthy career in the public sector, but that's taught me a lot. As I said, I've worked with various governments over the time, and some come, they give you a bit more money, and then others will take it away. But it's taught me many things. It's taught me how to prioritise, how to be more efficient, and how to invest more sensibly. And I will apply, you know, that understanding, that thinking, and that experience to council. I also get, you know, asked by a lot of people, you know, why do you want to stand for councils? And there's 2 answers from me on that. The first is, we live in one of the greatest places in New Zealand. South Wairarapa is just fantastic. It's got these wonderful villages, it's got this wonderful outdoors, and a wonderful lifestyle. And for me, that I just want to protect that as best we can. So I want to see us grow, and I just want to see us prosper. And I just want to be part of that and work with others to make a contribution there. Secondly, and finally, people want a better council. We haven't done enough here, and they just want council to work much better, to listen to them, to act on their interests. And for them, many people I'm talking to say, we need change. We need fresh thinking, fresh ideas, but we also need leadership at the top. We need to make council work. And for me, that's very, very important, because what I don't want to see, I just don't want to see the status quo, because that's simply not going to work.
Okay, can we please give Rob a big round of applause? Answering all those questions and letting Martinborough voters know exactly where you stand. Now, just we go a little bit of quick housekeeping here. The Ballot is an independent non-profit organisation funded on small dollar donations to help bring these brilliant, fantastic shows and resources available to you out there. If you'd like to support the campaign, you can head to our Eventbrite page and do a call with was it our permission donation to It's in the Ballot. You can also head to our Give a Little page and put a donation on there. You can also head to our website and go to it'sintheballot.nz and head on to donations to put a direct credit deposit that can go into our bank account. That's the quickest, cheapest, and freest, less fees way of helping us out. Or you can always, now we've got the new thing on there, we received a YouTube partnership yesterday. If you're alive, you can post a super chat in the show, and that can help contribute to it. And if it's not watching the show, you can do what's called a super thanks, which is where you can put a donation or a pledge amount to It's in the Ballot to help with our funding on bringing these fantastic content all around New Zealand. I'd also like to thank in studio Laura for being our all-round body person with cameras and computer. I'd like to thank Rob for taking the time and coming out to us today. It's not easy to put yourself in front of a video camera, but you look like you're a pro. Yeah, it feels like, no, a lot about it. And also I'd like to thank the audience for being here and for Paul for doing our remote editing and for Stacey for doing the graphics. We will be conducting the South Wairarapa Newell debate a bit earlier tonight at 5 p.m. So that we can let our crew go home early. So we'll see you back at 5 o'clock for that. Have a good afternoon.